Hmm. Soy retaiko soy nanamakakesita sameka. Soy retaiko soy namakesina. Eiroka soy taka. Enairo soy makaite sinaka. Welcome. It's such a gift to be here again in this space with all of you. It's been a little bit. I just got back from a really long trip with my parents and it was super activating. And I'm still getting used to my new energies and this new being. I shifted so many things in my work space, in my work room here, home in Kansas, in Lawrence, Kansas. And I even got a standing desk. I arrived and I was like, I can't deal with this room right now. It's too much. It's like my previous energies did not align anymore with these energies, but it feels good because I like in the podcast, if you have tapped in into the videos in YouTube. So thank you so much if you have had. Um, I'm constantly talking with my hands and I was constantly hitting the mic and this little guy. And yeah, so I can step back and speak more with my body. So that feels really, really, really good. And things are shifting. I'm certain that in your life, things have been shifting as well. And now with Uranus coming into Gemini, and I'm not an astrologer or anything, but I like to understand that, and I've been diving a little bit deeply into that. That in the Vedic astrology, which it resonates so much with me. By the way, this is not an episode about astrology. I'm just sharing a little bit of what's really present with me, and we're going to go really deeply into a beautiful analogy that I received while I was walking our puppy in the woods the other day, which is about the analogy of the tree in the woods, which is it relates really, really deeply with ancestral trauma and ancestral gifting or loving. But what really resonates with me about Vedic astrology, and it's not something that I've been learning a lot about it in the past years, but it just kind of like came up. And it resonates so much because it's linked with also yogic practices and breath work and mantra. So my little understanding and little research that I've done about it and studying about it in the past like 2 days is that depending on the transitions that are happening in your chart, there's something that you can do about it, which that's super exciting. There's some kind of breath work, there's some mantra chanting, or just something, a little prayer. And in the Western astrology, it's mostly about understanding your inner world, and then you learn how to sit with that, right? Because a lot of times I've heard, okay, just sit and be the observer. And what if you have no idea what that means? What if you have no idea how to even sit with yourself, right? So this is what I really enjoy when I was like, oh, Vedic astrology, that's nice, where it's like, okay, this is happening in your chart. How about you chant this? And there's this reason why you chant this mantra. And also there's this reason why you might want to do this too, So it's not like, hey, do this for the sake of doing it, which some people will do, like, I will totally do it just to try it out. But there's the understanding of like why you're doing this mantra, why you're doing this breath work. That's amazing. So, in my soul, because I teach and practice a lot of yogic things, and it's like, wow, that feels very, very aligned with me. And I think it's really because I went through such a massive shift in the past like month and a half a bit. That's a little bit of where I am. And I will share a little bit more about my journey and where my Kundalini awakening stands and the cracking phase, which is fascinating, and the healing of my body and the props that I've been using to facilitate this healing in my body and support the healing of my body, which I think is super important to know what your physical body needs, right? Just like your emotional body, what does your emotional body need at one moment in time, or your mental body, right? So thank you for listening. So now we're going to go into the analogy of the tree in the forest. But before we get into the space, I invite you to breathe with me. If it feels safe for you to close your eyes, please close your eyes. If not, get someone point in front of you. Let's take a deep inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth, let it go. One more time, taking a deep inhale through the nose. Exhaling through the mouth, letting it go. This time, take a deep inhale and just hold the breath to your degree, for as long as it's comfortable for you to hold the breath. May you receive and awaken what you're meant to receive and awaken within you. And exhale. Thank you. Thank you for breathing with me. So one of the things that I constantly do to bring more steadiness and balance into my emotional body, but really my whole being, is I go into nature. And I love listening to the sounds of nature, and I receive so many messages and from many spirits in the forest, really. So it's not only the time for our puppy Zeus to enjoy, and it's really wonderful to witness that in him, how happy he is in the forest, of course, right? But also for me, it's like I take a moment to decompress, and a lot of the times I don't take my phone, so I'm not that part of me that likes to create. It's like, oh, content, it's just like, this is now the time for me. The time for me in the forest, the time for me and Zeus, the time just for me and to receive, right? To be very, very present with what is. And as soon as we enter the forest, there was a story that came through. And I'm going to share this story with you. If it feels good for you to close your eyes, hopefully you don't fall asleep, but it will still enter your energetics. Or just maybe have a cup of cacao or some tea, something, or perhaps a journal. So when something ignites in you, you can write it down and not forget about it. One of the ways that I really retain information or messages is by writing them down, because I'm in constant channeling mode. And if I don't write down the things or really anchor them into the physical world, it will be like, and then I'm like, oh goodness, can you bring that back again? And sometimes it's not as quickly. Sometimes it takes a few hours, sometimes it's pretty quickly, but I've learned that that is how I need to anchor things, especially if they really resonate with me. So now we're in the forest, yeah? And there are so many great beings. Particularly, we're going to concentrate on the trees. So there is this really majestic tree, and it has a little son or a little girl, however it really feels like for you. I'm going to call her a little girl for sake of purposes. And so this beautiful little tree is looking up to her majestic father and her majestic mother, because they're around. But at the same time, also to her whole family, right? Her whole forest is the family. So when she looks up at her family members, at her community, they're ginormous. And they're so grand that it's like, yes, this is how I want to be. I want to expand so much like you. And I really want to feel in me that grandness that I see when I look at you, when I look at all of you, because I'm tiny. I'm like really, really tiny. I just came here. And so this is how the child feels like. And the other trees, because they're so grand and they've been here for so long, for so many years, in comparison to the little tree, they know that they have more wisdom. They know, just because of the years that they've been in the planet, in the space. But some of them some of them don't know what their shadows can do to the little one. And so they get bigger and bigger, the spread, sometimes they spread even more their branches, and there's more shadows that cast upon the little tree. And so the little tree at times, because it's so sensitive, at times it feels very small. And at times it really feels in the dark, like it doesn't understand. It wants to be up there, it wants to be like them, but it has no idea the shadows and the spaces that the bigger trees carry within them. Because she just came, she's witnessing, but she feels so deeply. And so at times, the bigger trees can feel that in themselves, can feel like there's something going on. But they don't realize the shadow that they're casting on the little ones. And even at times when they see that and they feel it, because it's such a process to actually feel that into them, they choose to ignore it. And when the little ones call it out, they completely ignore it. They might tell the little one that she's going crazy, or maybe you don't know anything. You don't know anything because you just arrived, literally, and we've been here. Look at us, how grand we are. Look at us, how we can reach higher, right? However, there is no difference between a taller tree or a smaller tree. There's no difference on the placement of any tree at all in the forest. Because when the light shines the forest, it might reach the top, yeah. And so it might make this illusion that the top part of the forest is lighter and brighter than the bottom part. But that doesn't make the leaves or the branches higher up that reach the sun easier, better than the lower part. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's the same ecosystem. It's the same wisdom that runs through every tree. It doesn't matter if it's huge or medium or little one, or it's a tiny little bush. It doesn't matter. Because the collective energy, the collective wisdom is still there. It's still there. And some know it. Some very wise trees know it, but others don't. So, when the shadows continue to cast in the little ones, and the little ones are receiving that, it's like, I look up to you. You are my family. You are my community. So, okay, I guess this is part of me. This shadow, this shade is part of me. So I'm going to receive it as a gift, if you will. Okay. So then it becomes their story that they're less. That they're less because they are smaller, that they're less because they have more shade, more shadow, that they're less because it's not as easily access to reach the sun, for example, right? Even though they still do, even though the sun still runs through their own veins and their own energies. But that is the belief, because they're smaller and the bigger trees cast a big shadow on them. That's their shadow. That's not our shadow. That's their shadow. So that's the things that they have to work through. We don't have to work through that because we're huge. We can reach the stars. We can reach the heavens. We can feel the sun in their upper branches and leaves. That is your thing to deal with because I'm cool where I am. So then the little ones are like, okay, I'm small. I might not be good enough. I have so much shadow. So they grow up believing this about themselves. And no matter what happens, They will not, they think, they have this story, they created this story that they will not be like the grand trees that they see in their family, in their surrounding areas, yeah, of their family and their community. So they have this thing in them. I feel small. And the shadows cast on me, those are my shadows. Those are not their shadows, those are mine. So deeply embedded in their core that becomes their reality. That becomes their reality. Until one day, they question it. And perhaps not a lot of them do, but one of them question it. One of them is able to feel the rays of the sun through just a little tiny space that opened up as one branch moved and some leaves moved, and then she feels the sun, even though she's smaller than the rest of the trees. And so then she goes like, wait a second. I thought that I had all the shadows. I thought that because I was small, I wasn't able to reach the sun, and the sun wasn't able to reach me. But what just happened? So she felt those energies, and then she begins to have this awareness of like, you were wrong. Even though you're grand and tall, you were wrong about that. Have you been wrong about anything else? Have I believed something that wasn't completely true for me? And so then this question begins, right? And it takes her in a journey of self-discovery, of self-awareness, of really coming into what is my truth? And is my truth really that I'm so small in comparison to you? Does the size actually matter? Or is it the energetics? Or is it how I feel about me? So then she begins to uncover the shadows of the grand trees. Slowly, and maybe it's not such an easy journey because those shadows have been embedded, not just from her, right? But from the other upper trees, not just necessarily her parents, but her grandparents and great-grandparents. They are even massive trees, right? Bigger than her parents. And her community in general, the area of the forest her community lives in and is part of. And so the shadows were believed so much in her lineage. It's not super easy for her to just like take all the shadows off, right? But she does it because she's curious. Once in a while, the sun comes in, and once in a while, it shines even brighter. Once in a while, she feels the warmth again. And the knowing that I'm not small, and I actually have a lot of warmth, and I don't really like, look at me, I don't have many shades right now. So what is this thing about like I have all the shadows and I carry all the shadows when I don't? When I don't. And then she realizes it's a play of the light. She realizes that it's not just the bigger trees who reach the sun and the warmth and whatever. She realizes that it's based on perspective. That it's based on perspective. That because they're taller, they can see a little bit more and they can reach higher, right? But she can also reach the highest of the high just by being her size. And so she continues to unfold this work, right? And then when she has children of her own and they're growing, even though her own shadows cast on her children, she tells her children, these are not your shadows. These are my shadows. These are my shadows. And I'm letting you know. So in case that you feel cold, you know that it's not because you're small. It's not because you're full of shadows and shades. It's because I'm a little higher. I'm a little taller than you are physically. And it's normal that I will block the sun once in a while for you. And I'm so sorry. But I'm taking responsibility for my height. I'm taking responsibility for what I carry, for my shadows. And so that you know, and then you can find and feel your own truth as you continue to evolve. And I am here to support you. I am here to support you. So this becomes a trend, or if you will, something that begins to spread through that area of the forest, right? And of course, some trees are like, no, absolutely no. But others are like, I think you're right. Because when I was growing up, once in a while I felt this sun too. But my parents were like, no, no, no. And so these are the ones that are creating the change in that particular part of the forest. And it's again, it's not all of them, right? But the ones that are so solid, the ones that are so curious, the ones that are like, do I really have to be here and accept everything that you're telling me without really considering if that actually feels true for me? And there's so many beautiful pockets around the forest where that is happening. Yeah, which is beautiful. It's so beautiful. But now let's go into the little girl that was growing up, right? And then it finds, her partner. And her partner had also been casted by shadows by the part of his forest, right? Just like she had. And maybe he has a little bit more awareness, or maybe she does, but they're both in this journey of uncovering the shadows. And they're both also once in a while cast their own shadows on each other. And if they are not aware, if they are not in a way standing in their own truth, the play that happens, when they were growing up is going to happen between them. So, like, no, that's not my shadow. That's absolutely not my shadow. That's your shadow. Even though she's like totally bringing her shadows down, or he will be like, no, no, absolutely no. I think you're crazy. Those are your shadows. Those are not mine. Even though, again, he's casting the shadows, and at time they could be doing that at the same time because they're still unfolding the shadows from their part of the forest. And at times it's so intense that the intensity just takes over. But then when they cool down, they realize, I'm so sorry, you were right. That was my shadow. How can we work through this? And just having patience with one another, right? Knowing that we are taking off those layers. We're taking off those layers for ourselves, right? And for each other. And I'm witnessing you like you're witnessing me. So can we have more patience, more compassion, more support? And can we do something differently? Can we see each other differently? Can we have something that reminds us that no matter what happens, even if it's your shadow casting on me or my shadow casting on you, we still love each other. And we're still here supporting each other through this revolution of love that is happening in the forest. That we're all awakening to the fact that we are grand, that we have so much wisdom. And it doesn't matter of our physical size. We are. And that's what matters. Hmm. So let's take a deep inhale through the nose. And exhale through the mouth. Let it go. So let this sink in your heart. Let this be felt in your heart, in your bones, in your womb or your hara, in you. Because this analogy, it really is what happens to all of us. We come in a family lineage that has some shadows, right? And the shadows have been casted upon every single person until it reached you. And by the time it reached you, it wasn't just tiny, it was huge, it was ginormous. Because not necessarily because the ones before you didn't want to do the work, whatever happened, Would you ever know what happened? Who knows? Maybe if you awaken some ancestral codes in you, you can, right? But other than that, if your family members tell you or not, you wouldn't really know. But so like it was passed down and passed down and passed down and passed down, and it continuously got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until you reach you and just like, poof, this is your shadow, right? And maybe you grew up and like, this is the way that we do things, until you reach the moment where like, wait a second, is it really the way that I do things? I don't think so. And what if I do things differently? And what if I believe that that shadow, sure, okay, yeah, it came to me and I accepted it. But what if I don't want to accept it anymore? And that's totally okay. And now this is your own revolution of love in your lineage, just like in the forest, right? And then the same thing is happening to your partner. The same thing is happening, might be happening to your brother, your sister, who knows, right? And to many different brothers and sisters around the world. And then think about the world like beautiful forests around. And there's pockets of forest where that consciousness is awakening. But we also have to be very mindful for the fact that your partner is going through the same thing that you are, and probably a completely different way. And maybe they might feel it way more than you do, or maybe you feel it way more than they do. But it doesn't mean that they don't feel that smallness that they felt growing up with all the shadows that were casted upon them, just like you did, right? So this analogy and this beautiful story that came through while I was walking in the forest with Zeus is a reminder to me that, yes, I'm doing the work. And I know, and it's been pretty challenging at times, but my partner is also doing the work. And it doesn't mean that I feel more the pain that he does or vice versa. We just feel our pain and period. But if in those moments, can I remember that we're doing the exact same work? And if those moments, I can have more compassion, not only for myself, but for him. In those moments, I can have more love for myself and also for him. In those moments, not allow my pain to actually, say that his pain is not valid, or he doesn't feel any pain. But to know, because I'm breaking through that, he also feels my pain because we're deeply intertwined and we deeply feel each other's energies. And not just that, because we love each other. And just like in your partnership, right? Can you find that space in you? And the reminder that it's not like you're higher or lower than somebody else. You're just equal. And we're just riding these ways of awakening together to the best of our abilities. So, what can you do to show up better for yourself? And what can you do to show up better for your partner and support their awakening process, his or her awakening process? And it's such a beautiful story that, when I was like feeling into that and hearing and seeing, it's like, it is so true. It is so true. And no matter what you're going through, if you feel very dark and very low, it's not like you are just in the depth of things. You're still in the top. The sun is still shining on you. But you're just seeing yourself from a different perspective, like the little tree. Like the little tree that thought that she was just always casted in shadows because she was so small and the sun couldn't reach her. Or that the leaves on the top of the trees are look better or different because the sun shines on them and they seem different than the ones that are at the bottom. But it's not. They're all the same. And they're all part of the same ecosystem. They're all part of the same cell family. And they all still feel very deeply, whether they say that or not. You still feel very deeply, whether you say it or not. I still feel very deeply, whether I say it or not. It's our choice what we get to share. And also, it's our choice how we move through these waves of awakening, how we support ourselves, what we do for ourselves, how we show up for ourselves, and at the same time, how we show up for others, how we show up for our partners or our business or students in our work environment, in our family setting. It's your choice. And if we could all remember that we have all been in that position of feeling all the shadows being casted on us and so small, then we're not really that different from one another. That we're all moving that pain moving those layers, moving that truth that perhaps at one moment it was true and no longer is. If we could all remember that analogy of the tree and the forest and know that it's super relatable to perhaps all of us, how much compassion could we have for everybody else? Knowing that maybe some shadows were casted even deeper in others than in ourselves. But that still doesn't make you better than anybody else or your belief system better than somebody else's. We're still the same, and we're still the same ecosystem that lives in this planet, that is this planet, the same family no matter what. So remembering that, perhaps we'll create the change that we need to create in this planet at this moment in time, in your ecosystem and in the ecosystem of the rest that come in touch with you, and the rest that don't. Now, that is a dream that I weave together with my soul family. What dream do you choose to weave?